Who owns Nigeria Eagle Airlines, and can you take us through the percentage ownership?
Well, good afternoon. Thanks for having me in here. Currently, the shareholding remains the same as it did in 2005, which is of the 21 institutional investors, we have Virgin Atlantic with 49% and the Nigerian institutional investors with 51%, and that still remains the same.
As we've just mentioned in the intro, you're looking at raising $30 million. Is this a price you've put on the stake that Virgin owns of the Nigeria Virgin Airline?
Oh no, this is just sort of a minimum entry level figure. We're looking for anything between 70 and possibly 300 million, but it's a difficult time for sourcing funds at this time, as you know. So 70 million, it's got nothing to do with the Virgin Atlantic share. It's just a minimum entry level, like I said, so we're looking for more later on.
As you've just mentioned, it's difficult times. What type of investors are you currently talking to, and is there interest?
Oh yes, there is interest. At the moment we have a private placement memorandum which will be released in, I'd say, in the next 6 weeks. It's still got to go through board approval. We have a board meeting coming up on the 5th of October, at which point it'll be ratified and then we'll go public with it. We have a lot of interest within Nigeria and from investors outside Nigeria, including the US, so it's looking very promising.
But I'm sure losing the Virgin brand has had some impact on your business.
Well, yes and no. We brought on board the Monitor Group to do a strategic reboot of the company moving forward and to, of course, assess the damage, so to speak, or the consequences of not having the Virgin brand any longer. And it was interesting because we thought it would be a lot higher than that. And with about 2,500 respondents that were sent out, we got a feedback which is very interesting. And that is, without the Virgin brand, we would potentially lose 7% of our market if we did nothing about it. And of course, we're not going to just sit back and do nothing. So that was very encouraging. And therefore, it meant that we wouldn't be losing more than we thought we'd be losing without the Virgin brand. So we're good there.
Let's just quickly go into your operations. You've recently signed a technical partnership with Ethiopian Airlines. Which services will the airline be providing to Nigeria Eagle Airlines? And if there are gaps, who's going to fill them?
Well, we chose a partnership with Ethiopian Airlines because they are Africa's largest airline. They're very successful, huge profit. As you know, they made over 117 million this year. And they've got about 36 aircraft or so on order at the moment. So the synergies between them and us was, you know, sort of marriage made in heaven. It's non-financial, it's technical, which means we'll be using their services, their expertise. They'll train our pilots, our cabin crew, because we need to have an African flavor to the training. The European form of training is different from African training, to the same standard, but a different culture and a mindset and an attitude in appeasing African customers. And they will also audit our operations. They'll have oversight over our ground services, frontline staff, engineering, airworthiness. So it's a unique opportunity for us to take ourselves to the next level using a well-established airline like Ethiopian Airlines.
Okay, you're also changing your fleet from Boeing to Brazilian airline Embraer. Is this the right time to be going through such a costly exercise?
Well, yes and no. Originally, when it was Virgin Nigeria, they had placed an order for 10 Embraers with an option for 6 further aircraft. But then it was to own the aircraft. But what we're doing now is we're actually selling our aircraft to a leasing company. So it's going to be a sale and lease back. So that takes the burden, the cost burden of ownership off us, and instead we'll be leasing the aircraft. So I think that's part of our re-strategization moving forward, to lease the aircraft rather than buy them. And we're not entirely going to phase out the 737s, Boeings at this rate, because there are some far-flung destinations within Africa that the 737 has a market for and the capacity for, particularly with cargo. So we'll have a mixed fleet, but the majority, of course, will be the Embraer.
Talking about destinations, you've cancelled your Lagos-London and Lagos-Johannesburg routes. Are you likely to reintroduce those routes and even expand to other destinations?
Yes. At the moment, it's been suspended, let's put it that way, because you can't start running until you've learned how to walk. And I think what we've got to do now, as part of this new management's commitment to the company, is first of all concentrate on domestic and regional. Master the art of domestic and regional. Get your act together. And then you can go to the long-haul destinations like Europe or America. But for now, I think we should just back off a bit, because we were becoming a jack of all trades and master of none. We were doing the long haul, we were doing domestic, we were doing regional. I think it's too much for a young airline of, at that time, 1 year's, 2-year-old aircraft. That's just too much burden on an airline at that age. So I think we need to give ourselves a break and come back to that later on.
Well, Dapo, it sounds promising. However, when are you planning to phase out the Virgin brand? I mean, when I logged onto your website, you still have the Virgin brand on your website.
Well, with debranding and rebranding, it's not an overnight exercise. For example, I could, theoretically, of course, take all the aircraft out and paint them at the same time, which means I've effectively stopped my operations. Yeah. So you can't do that. So what I have to do is paint one aircraft at a time. As soon as one aircraft comes back, the other one goes in. So it's a back-to-back operation. And that way I can keep myself earning some revenue. But in the meantime, the signage at the airports will start changing in the various countries that we fly to, and all the touch points and so on, websites. It's a gradual thing, it's not overnight. So over the next couple of weeks, you'll see a complete transformation, but it's gradual.